Please tell me they're gonna...
Here, I'll ask this question both for myself and counsel. Is it okay during openings that we remove our masks? Thank you.
I think this is the best I'm going to be able to get the audio, just as a heads up.
Good morning, members of the jury. Today, and through the course of this trial, you are going to hear that this man, Alan Swinney, traveled all the way from the state of Texas to Portland, Oregon, due to his hatred of Antifa. He came all the way here to fight Antifa. It's what drove him, it's what motivated him, that hatred. You're going to be asked to review two separate dates, August the 15th of 2020 and August the 22nd of 2020. Here this morning, I'm going to go through those events with you, and we'll look at what the evidence in the state is going to be presenting to you through the course of this trial. Before he even set foot into the city of Portland, he was telling people exactly his motivation, how he felt. You see, Mr. Swinney was big about posting on this app called Parler. And you'll hear that that's something similar or akin to a Facebook, Twitter type of social media app that was being used in 2020. In there, he says very clearly, this isn't turning into a civil war. In his mind, it is a civil war. In that very same post, you'll see that he is expressing and saying that he is he's camped out, or in his mind, deployed outside of Portland. He wants people to join him. He believes he's involved in an old school Civil War camp. Time to get started. We can beat these people. Encouraging people to recruit. What you will hear through the course of this trial is not just his words, but you will see his actions. You'll see the way he dressed and what he brought to this city. How did he arrive on August the 15th? How did he come here in his civil war? He believed, in his mind, with Antifa. He came dressed for battle. Carrying cans of bear mace, shields, body armor, a very large knife on his hip, a paintball gun filled with paintballs and a CO2 canister. And a flag. But let's all look at that flag and the flagpole. It is a club. Now, he was not alone. He had, on the 15th, 10, maybe 20 people with him. Some of them were actually carrying flags that were with a regular flagpole, things of that nature. But on that date, he started out in front of the Justice Center. His group was there because he knew that was the exact spot where the social justice movement had been happening throughout the summer in Portland. He knew that was the spot where Antifa was, in his mind. So he came to that spot so he could get his fight. It started out at the Justice Center. There was a little bit of back and forth. people arrived, counter-protesters. They came. When there were approximately the same number, maybe a few more, he and his group decided to start walking away. Now, through the course of this trial, you're going to see the videos that were taken. Videos that show his route of travel, that as he leaves, he goes from 3rd Avenue down to 2nd Avenue, then north, on up to Taylor. Now, in the course of this travel, there are times when both sides are walking almost hand in hand. And certainly, they are talking to each other. There's certainly going to be plenty of exercise of free speech. Some of it isn't going to be pleasant. There's going to be cussing. There's going to be people telling them to leave. But what you're going to see is, in this series of videos and on this route of travel, there are times when, for whatever reason, he just decides to stop and engage with them. Talking, as we all know, free speech, that's fine. But when the free speech stops and the punching, bear macing, and paintballing start, that's where the issue is. On the 15th, what we're going to be talking about is bear mace and paintballs. On this route of travel, you'll see there are some red circles. There's one in particular here, and that's on Southwest 4th Avenue. And on the videos, we'll see clearly, walking pretty much close hand in hand with some of the counter-protesters. And there he decides to stop. He has his group with him, the people that are there to support him and his cause. But he stops. Because now he's decided, well, they're too close. And this is what you'll see in the videos.
You have the right to harass people.
So, he's walking along, he stops, he's approached by this young female. They're not holding anything. See the video, you can look and see what she has. And so he decides to bear mace her in the face. When she walks away, this man walks up with a camera. He has a gas mask on. Bear mace isn't going to work the same. So, you see, he gets shot right in the head with a paintball at very close range. Now, during this time, there is a man who's walking along and filming him. That man is Jason Britton. He will come and testify, and he will tell you why he came down on August the 15th. He'll tell you that he didn't like the fact that Alan Swinney was there, someone he didn't know, but someone that was all dressed up in this gear, and he didn't like the way he was behaving. And he'll tell you very clearly, I was telling him to leave. Certainly, I was using colorful language. He'll tell you, I was not threatening him. In the course of that walk, again, Mr. Swinney will stop. Now, early on in their walk, Mr. Britton, you'll see in the video, will actually ask him, "What are you doing with that paintball gun? Do you want to shoot me with it?" And you'll hear Mr. Swinney kind of mumble and go, "Yeah." And then he does later. You'll see video. In fact, you'll see a video from this perspective and from Mr. Britton's perspective, because he actually had his camera up and was filming. He is the gentleman in the flip-flops, the shorts, the t-shirt with the camera. And Mr. Swinney shoots him right in the eyebrow area. Again, because he felt that they were too close, even though they had been walking side by side just moments before. Now, that course, as we said, the videos will show you. But it's Mr. Britton I want to talk about. What's he carrying? What's the difference? Well, he has a t-shirt on, he has a camera, he has a camera bag, he has shorts, his flip-flops. And afterwards, he's going to tell you, you got a long-term eye injury out of this. He'll describe the pain. He'll describe problems with his vision out of all of this. From the 15th, there'll be a series of 5 charges. The attempted assault in the 4th degree and the unlawful use of mace in the 2nd degree will relate specifically to the young woman that's sprayed in the face. The attempted assault 2 to the man who was shot in the head on 4th Avenue. Unlawful use of a weapon, we'll be talking about that paintball gun that he was using. And then the assault 2 on Mr. Britton for shooting him in the eye. In the course of the trial, you will see various social media posts and times where he brags about this. Unapologetic. But let's not forget, August 22nd, this is the second section that we'll ask you to look at. On August 22nd, and the days leading up to it, he was talking about it. Again, on Parler. Talking about bringing hundreds of patriots. Because he feels like you've removed the cops, now you have to deal with us. We the people, in his words. What about that day? What did he say about that day? On that day, August 22nd. No? Portland, Oregon, Saturday, August 22nd. He puts in a little video clip of the movie 300, and I'll draw your attention to, he specifically says, this is where we hold them. This is where we fight. At the end of the trial, certainly we'll be talking about self-defense. We'll be talking about, was it a justified self-defense? We'll be looking at, was he acting reasonably? Was he the first aggressor? We'll go through, and the state will argue at that time about how all this evidence comes into play when looking at those questions. Right now, we're going through what the evidence will be, and at the end, certainly we'll talk about how it applies to those concepts. So, on the 22nd, well, let's see, how did he show up on the 22nd? Well, he has his riot helmet on, he has body armor, he's got the arm shield, mace, again, the flagpole. He has the large knife on his hip. The paintball gun is upgraded. Now it has a laser sight. And this time, on the 22nd, he's brought a .357 Magnum revolver. It is right there on his hip. What did he get dressed up for? Where did he bring all of this material? Right to the heart of the city. Over on 3rd Avenue, right in front of the Justice Center, right in front of Chapman Park. Again, you will see videos and pictures that show that the activity occurs essentially right in this area, between Chapman and the Justice Center. True to his words, he brought hundreds. There were hundreds of people down there. People that were supporting his side of the ideology, people that were supporting the other side of the ideology. And it's important to note, this trial is not about whose ideology is right or wrong. That doesn't matter. What matters is what were the actions, what was done. Were those actions criminal? And in the course of this trial and seeing the videos and hearing from the witnesses, we'll be talking about a chaotic day on the 22nd. One in which there were lots of people, there were shields, there were things being thrown, and it's going to be from both sides. But we're going to look at what did Alan Swinney do that day. Certainly, we'll hear from witnesses, Brittany Carell and Megan Stewart, and we'll talk about seeing him standing behind a line of shields, firing in to Chapman Square, repeatedly shooting over and over and over at people. One of those people that were shot was Megan Stewart. Well, we'll have her talk about, what were you wearing? What were you doing? She'll explain she came out to see what all the chaos was about. Was wearing basic jacket, jeans, t-shirt, COVID mask. She wasn't wearing a helmet. She didn't have goggles on. She wasn't in what is going to be referred to commonly as black bloc. In the course of that, she was maced. She was shot by a paintball from Alan Swinney. It caused her a specific injury. It hit her so hard that it left a bruise on her body. She was even took a short video clip right afterwards. We'll have her show that. Certainly, she will also explain that at the end, she had another run-in with Mr. Swinney where he maced her in the face. Terrell will also talk about this question. What do you do with that gun he was carrying around? In the course of this, certainly things were being thrown. He thought, in his mind, that it was a good idea to pull that out. This very large caliber revolver, a .357, a particular type of gun. It's called a Blackhawk Ruger. It requires that you draw the hammer back, kind of old Western cowboy style, and then pull the trigger to fire. So we took that out, and Ms. Carell will explain, he pointed it at the crowd, pointed where she was standing. She will explain she was terrified. Ultimately and thankfully, he didn't pull that trigger. Put it away, but he certainly pointed it at people. And so, when we look at the charges, from this day, we'll be talking about an assault in the second degree. Of course, at the end, when we argue and we go through, we'll talk about the law, what constitutes an assault in the second degree, what is the weapon required, why is a paintball gun considered a weapon in this circumstance. We'll go through that. But also, the unlawful use of a weapon, the paintball, and the unlawful use of a weapon for the handgun, that revolver. Menacing that's associated with pointing that firearm and the revolver, and the charge of pointing a firearm at another. And finally, the unlawful use of mace on Ms. Stewart and the assault 4. Make no mistake, the 22nd was a chaotic day, and there was a lot of activity from both sides. A lot of things being thrown, you'll see. It was a mess. And at the end of this trial, certainly, we will talk about Mr. Swinney's self-defense claim, whether it's reasonable, whether his actions were justified. At the end of the trial, the state will argue to you, looking at his words, his actions, the way he presents himself, things he does on those days, none of that was reasonable. His actions were not justified, and he should be found guilty on all the counts. Thank you.
Thank you very much.